Start. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our monthly webinar from Boundary Consulting in partnership with the Indiana Department of Education. This month's webinar is going to be around ESSER funding. This has been a topic that has been brought up in multiple webinars that we have done in the past with questions around it. And we felt that it was necessary to do one where we specifically identified some of the frequently asked questions about the funding. With us today, we have Frank Chicky and Shanice Hawkins. You guys have Frank's bio. I won't get too deep into it. I'll let him introduce himself, and as well as Shanice. But with that, I'll turn it over to one of you guys to say something on behalf of IDOE, and then kind of jump into it and let you guys introduce yourselves and start the presentation, if that's okay.
That's fine. I'm Frank Chicky, as you had said, the new Director of Title Grants and Support. I've been in the role less than a month, but I've been with the department a little over, well, almost 3 years now as a specialist, senior specialist, and then as the Assistant Director for Charter Schools and Special Programs. Been in education for a little over 20 years in all different roles. But we are here to answer any questions that you have, to do the best that we can. I'm saying this at every presentation I go to have some grace with us, because just as schools are struggling to fully staff positions, we are also doing the same here at the department. So we're working as diligently and as quickly as we can. But it may take us a little bit longer than usual, but we will get back to you and answer any questions, because we're here to help you fund your plans as best we can. So, and definitely is a partnership with Boundary as well, with the seminars and webinars that they've done. So we appreciate their help. So we have Shanice, and also Lacey Bolin is with us. She is going to be moving, or has moved into, the Assistant Director position that I formerly held. So I'm going to let her introduce herself as well. And sorry, Lacey, putting you on the spot unexpectedly. So Lacey, do you want to go, and then we'll follow with Shanice?
Okay, that sounds good. Thanks so much for the introduction. As Frank mentioned, my name is Lacey Bolin, and Frank and I actually started at the same time. So I have almost been at the IDOE for 3 years as well. Started in Title IV, and then moved to the Ombuds position, overseeing all of the things that revolve around EAMS, and now am moving into the Assistant Director position, where I will be working with CSP as well as out of school time, Title IV, and EAMS.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Shanice?
Good morning. As Frank said, I'm Shanice Hawkins. I am the new charter school specialist. I've been with DOE for a little over 2 years, mostly working with Title I and Title II. So charter is
David, Cameron.
Sorry. Charter is completely new to me. So if you have questions, if you need resources, I will be like the first point of contact. But as Frank said, bear with me, I am still learning.
Yes, and in many ways, Shanice is a team of one when there's normally 3. So that's why I'm asking for grace and patience as we work to answer any questions that you have as quickly as we can. Oscar, is there anything you also wanted to say before I jump in?
Yeah, before we begin, everybody should have access to ask questions. We ask that if Frank is talking, to use the chat button, not the Q&A, to ask questions. So feel free to ask a question if he's in the middle of talking, or if he opens up the conversation, you can unmute yourself and jump in and have a conversation. We found that in these webinars that we've done, when there's an open conversation, they seem to, the panelists and the attendees seem to get the most out of it. And we hope to have that outcome today, as this is a topic that is important enough to everybody that is here today. So with that, please, I'll let you begin, and we'll go from there.
Thanks, and I agree with Oscar. Just if you jump in or have a question, please do so, because I don't have a set agenda. I have some information, and then it's your questions. And I'm going to apologize for Lacey. I didn't realize she was going to be with us today. So Lacey, my apologies for not having your name on here, and we'll get that added if I can send it to Oscar with updated information so everybody has your contact as well. So let's start with the ESSER by the numbers. We have received a lot of money, more than we would ever expected maybe to get in a lifetime. For all of the ESSERs that we've received 1 through 3, the original was called CARES. As you see, we've been awarded over $3 billion over the last basically year and a half that we're working through. There, and it's also our finance department is kind enough to give us some of our what we've expended. So only 370 million has been reimbursed so far out of all of the ESSER funds. So we are encouraging people to please get your budgets in, start using your money for the expenditure, because we would like to spend every last penny that we have helping the students and schools and LEAs for Indiana. I don't know if any of you know, but there is an ESSER dashboard that's being created. It's not live yet. It should be, from my understanding, within the next couple of weeks, that will help provide information not only to you, but also to the community. Anyone will be able to go in and click on a corporation or a school and see how much has been allocated, how much is reimbursed, and what's remaining of your ESSER funds. And then the community might look to see this dashboard and then go to your individual websites to see 2 things. One, your return to school plan, which is a requirement, as well as at least a synopsis of what the funds are being used for. Again, that is a requirement from ESSER 3 only. So the only plans that have to be up, I mean, it's good practice if you have them all up, but the one that's mandated is for ESSER 3, what the funds are being spent for. And so we kind of want to make these be a partnership when this goes live. There are basically 3 takeaways for ESSER. ESSER is very flexible. I mean, that is the good and the bad of it. It's very flexible in what the funds can be spent on, and it still has some parameters. The first is essentially if it's allowable under other federal programs, it's going to be allowable under ESSER, whether that's out of school time, Title II, Title IV, across the board. It also still needs to meet what we call RAN. It has to be reasonable, allocable, and necessary. And those are things that we have in conversation with you. If you send something in as a request for an activity, and it seems odd because some of this we don't know about, we might ask for follow-up questions. You know, what is this for? How many students? Have you done your 3 bids? Or because if you still have to follow those when you're doing construction projects. So it still needs to meet RAN. And the final, what I call the final leg of the triad, is it has to be related to preventing, mitigating, or addressing the learning or accelerated learning loss or accelerated learning. And it has to be directly related to COVID. We do get a lot of requests for items that would be fantastic to have. And I would, our team would like to say, yes, we can move that through for approval, but it has to be directly related to COVID. So when you're thinking about your activities, keep that in mind, and it has to meet all 3 of these steps showing on the screen, and then most likely we use for the activity. There are some things that we can't approve because of the nature of what's being requested, and it normally has to go back to, is it related to COVID-19? How has your school has been affected by the pandemic? Some key dates to keep in mind, because these funds are not forever. They will not carry over into following years. They do have a set limit. So when you're also looking at your activities, especially if you're looking at staffing, please remember to think about sustainability and how you're hiring people and what you'll do when the funds are end. For the CARES ESSER 1, that's next, we just passed, so we have until September 30th of next year of 2022 for those funds. And then the following year, SO2 expires. And then in 2024, the last of that $3 billion will need to be expended, or what is left will go back to the federal government. We don't anticipate any extensions or any additional funds coming through. So that's the reason, think wisely about what you need at this point in time, and keep in mind, because some people are using it for stipends, some are using it for retention bonuses, and all of that is okay. Just know that eventually these funds will not be available, and what will you do once they're gone? And we have a plethora of resources. Lacey, I'm going to give her credit, has put together an amazing website with the resources that we have. It has frequently asked questions. It provides some examples of things you might use for your funds. It has the language that you might need to see if it's allowable. So I'd say, please definitely check that out. It is all very worthwhile information if you've not done so already. And that kind of leads me to where we are for basic questions and answers. We will do our best to answer what you have today. If not, I'm going to write it down, and we will do our best to get back to you shortly to see if something is allowable. There was a question that came up posed to me yesterday that I've not been able to get the answer to yet, which is about making what we would call permanent renovations or upgrades to a leased or rented building by charters. I'm not sure if that would be like HVAC. A lot of schools are using it to improve air quality. I'm not sure if that would be allowable in a building that you don't particularly own or in the process of purchasing. So that will be a question that I will find, and then we'll put it onto the frequently asked questions just so that it is out there. So I'm going to open it up, and Oscar, if you have anything, or anybody, please kind of just pop in.
Yeah, I think we have one that came in from Charnel about the website. If you can go back one slide, and we'll provide the slides to everybody after the call. But do you have the actual website to the links up there?
Well, if you go to the IDOE website itself, let's see if I can.
And Lacey has actually put them up there now.
Oh, thank you, Lacey. I knew somebody would jump in. So I appreciate that. Both Shanice, both of you for putting those in.
So one question is that you mentioned that you guys have denied some projects, and and while you don't have a firm answer on the eligibility of improvements of a leasehold building, can you give us some examples of some of the things that you may have seen come through more than once that has been denied, and just to sort of put that out there?
Some of it has had to do with vehicles. People are wanting to purchase buses, and the rationale did not meet the three requirements that I had set up. So we did have to go back to drawing board on that. Some people have requested some positions that were not directly related to COVID. They would have been, I mean, they're allowable under, say, Title I or Title II, but would not have come out of ESSER because it's not directly related to COVID. There's been a couple, a few curriculum things here and there that were, the description talked about meeting curriculum, but that would not have been directly related to COVID itself. It was just one of those things that would have been nice to have. And I would love to approve everything that comes through, but we still have to make sure it meets those requirements. Those are the things that come off the very top of my head. Like I said, it's been a rare occurrence that we've had to send something back and say, we need to rethink this. Again, we always try to get to what we call get to yes, to be able to fund your plan. And it may be that how it was described to us in the initial was not really what you had intended. And I know that there's limited space, which is why we always reach out if we have questions to get kind of clarify what's being requested. So I hope that helps and answers the question from about what's been declined.
Okay, I have one more here. So the deadline for ESSER 1 is next September, and then 2 the following, and then 3 in 24. Once a plan has been submitted and approved, what is the level of flexibility to amend those approved projects? And the follow up to that is, can the projects be amended beyond the allowability period? So twofold is, once you have one approved, can you change it? And can you change it? And if so, can you change it beyond those deadlines? Sorry.
So it's a yes and no. I mean, yes, you can amend. Keep in mind what you have already expended. So if we're now over a year into the, close to a year for the ESSER or for CARES. So make sure that when you're changing it, that you're not affecting things that you've already been reimbursed for. But amendments will be possible. There will be a kind of a cutoff for when you can make an amendment, because if you're trying to change something, say next August 30 of 2022, you have 30 days to basically expend and obligate those funds. Usually not a reasonable, I mean, it does happen, but it's usually not a reasonable period of time. So just be mindful of that. And any expense for, say, ESSER 1 cannot go beyond 9/30 of 2022. So if you're wanting to enter into a contract of some sort, I would look at the longer of the ESSERs when they end, because for any contract, whether it's Title I, Title II, it cannot go beyond that encumbrance deadline.
Frank, can you repeat that, please, for ESSER 1, the CARES? You said if you're in a contract, it can go to 2022?
Yes, it can, as long as it ends by 9/30 of 2022, you're good. But for any federal fund.
Copy. Give me 1 second.
Sorry.
Oh, no, it's this guy. Sorry, Don, I just want to make sure it wasn't somebody asking. Yeah, for any of the fund title, whether it's Title I, Title II, no matter what it is, the funds cannot go beyond the encumbrance deadline for 99% of things. One possible exception are registrations for conferences that would occur after that deadline, but those are case-by-case basis. So does that help, Don?
It does. So then that means contracts for ESSER 2 would be 23 have to be over, and I'm sorry, ESSER 2
Yep.
for 2023 and ESSER 3 for 2024, correct?
Correct.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yep.
I believe somebody else had a question. Stephanie, did you have a question? Oh.
Hi, Oscar. Thanks. Good morning, everyone. My name is Stephanie Bowie, and I wanted to circle back to the curriculum question that, or the discussion about curriculum. So in the design and development, is it just very critical in learning objectives that you really tie it closely to mitigating the learning loss, or what have the successful curriculum submissions done differently or done well than the ones that were denied, if you can share any of that?
Well, the one that we're pushing back on is typing, that they were wanting a typing program to help with the meeting standards. So that one, again, as it was described, because maybe that's not what they meant, as described, that would not be possible. But if you're getting something that's, remediation for interventions and things.
Okay.
No problem.
Thank you so much.
Yep. So I'm looking at the chat. There's one about what's required as part of the plan to return to in-person instruction. I don't have that off the top of my head, but it is in the frequently asked questions, the FAQ on the website, if you want to pull that up. And then what administrative percent does the grant allow? We try to keep it as low as possible. Generally, we look at the around the 5 to 10%. We definitely would like to keep as much direct instruction as possible, but you can use some administrative expenses. Again, it comes down to that reasonableness. And Yvonne. Complete the application. Yvonne, do you mind if you're unmuting, and does that mean that you've not been able to access the Title I App Center?
No, I haven't been. No, I haven't.
Okay, so if you go to Shanice or Lacey, can you post that link in for the Title I?
Pulling it up now.
Okay, thank you. When you click on that, at the bottom of the screen, there'll be something about adding an account as a new user, register as a new user. Click on that, it'll ask some information, and you should be approved within a day or two at the most. Usually it's within the same day, but we do ask for up to 48 hours.
Is that for a username and password? Because I did send something saying that I couldn't get in because I didn't have a username or password. So they did send me a user and a temporary password. Is there a time frame on the use of the temporary password?
That I don't know. That would have been IT that probably would have sent that to you. Yvonne, if you don't mind, let me put up my email. If you want to email me, and then let me see what I can find out for you.
Because I believe that what I did get might be for the Finance Center and not Title I.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, just if you send me a quick email, I can check to see if you are in the system or not, and let you know what you need to do from there.
Okay, thank you.
And then Lacey or Shanice, do you mind putting our emails in the chat box as well, just in case? Okay, there's what qualifies as activities to address learning loss? I mean, the short answer is anything that talks about interventions. It can be, interventions during the day for supplies or paraprofessional or an intervention teacher. It might be after school tutoring. Summer school falls into that as well.
Frank, these are reimbursable grants, meaning you have to spend the money to get the money back. We have seen schools go out and take out temporary loans to sort of cash flow loans to make the expense and get and pay those back.
Mhm.
Have you seen any restrictions around what funds can be used to be then reimbursed? I know one of the questions, I'll be more specific, that I've been asked is, there are schools that have outstanding debt via whether it be a lease payment or a bond payment or just a regular bank loan. And if those are, one, eligible, and two, can those be made and reimbursed via ESSER?
There is, I would say it's not a cut and dry. There is some flexibility to use funds in those way. Again, if you can tie the cash flow back to COVID. So those would be kind of a case by case basis. So it's not a yes or no, it's kind of that gray area. Because there's been a couple LEAs that we have helped with that for charters. So just when you send in your descriptions, if you have questions, send that to your grant specialist or to me, and then I can give you a more definitive answer based on your circumstances. So I couldn't be more yes or no on that one.
No, that was perfect. It's just a question that has been asked. Anybody have a question that they would like to jump in?
I want to make sure. Oh, that was Chris that was asking about the learning loss. Okay. Feel free to jump in with any question. If we don't know, we'll get back to you. And because like I said, it's a very open grant. It's very flexible overall. So if there's something unique or innovative that you're thinking about, now would be the time to we could go through that to see what's going on with it.
So Frank, build out for like construction, build out for extra space for spacing for COVID-19, all that stuff that we've already submitted our application for. What I am concerned about though is these dates of drop dead dates of, so you're saying that the construction would have to be completed by using the ESSER funds by 2024 of September.
Yeah, if you're using ESER 3. Yeah, and that's the reason we've been upfront with LEAs, that we know that timing can be an issue. So make sure that whatever you're contracting in, that you're contracting to finish by that time.
Gotcha. Okay, thanks.
Frank, I have a question. This is Yvonne Bowen.
Mhm.
Once we complete the application, how long does it take to get approved?
We try to, and I'm going to use that word, we try to get back to you within 2 to 3 days, because we are short-staffed by about 5 members right now. It may take longer depending on what's in the queue, but we try to get as quick a turnaround as possible. If you submitted something that's has time sensitive, if you're wanting to do a training and you need that approved quicker, just let your specialist know, hey, this is kind of timely. Do you have time to take a look at it now? And then they can also alert the second reviewer, hey, this is kind of time sensitive once it gets to the second reviewer, and we can move it up in the queue. Can't do that for everybody, of course, but we try to be as accommodating as our capacity allows.
Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, I'm just being transparent with people about capacity, because I don't want you to wonder why it's taking longer than it would have in the past. We are trying to staff up like with everybody, but just reality of where we are at the moment.
Frank, there's a question in the chat about COVID screening and testing.
Oh, thank you. Yes, those are allowable expenses. Again, reasonable. I mean, if you're asking for a unreasonable amount of money for that, then we'd kind of have a chat, but those are allowable expenses. And in fact, several school districts have done that. We actually had a one high school that in terms of vaccinations was able to spend some to transport students, with parent permission over 18, a whole lot of other paperwork that would go involved with that. But that was an innovative way that they assisted with their high school students.
Anybody else? I know there's a couple schools on here that are looking to not only expand, but potentially pay off some debt. And this is the time to ask if you feel comfortable.
I'll say for the debt relief, again, just shoot me an email with kind of the specifics, and then I can let you know what we need to be able to proceed on that.
And I'll take this chance to talk about this. I know Jimmy Shanahan, who's a bond attorney, is on the line, and we've been asked this from a number of schools, which has been, can we use ESSER funding to pay off our existing bonds? And we've answered that in 2 ways. If eligible, yes and no. And that is that bond, just like a loan, they're not callable until they're refinanceable. There's a specific date. So if you were to use, if it was eligible and approved, then you could use it to pay off specific bonds at their maturity date, but you would have to prepay all the interest that came. So it's ultimately just prepaying future obligations to include the interest, which in theory should free up their internal cash flow for other uses. But it couldn't just be prepaid, at least for municipal bonds. And Jimmy, if you wanted, if you're listening and wanted to say anything on that, you didn't know you were going to be a panelist. You may not be paying attention right now. It's okay. I'll allow a minute or two for additional questions. We're 30 minutes in, and these are reimbursable grants that are one-time in nature. Frank and I had this conversation briefly before the call, and we see this often with municipalities with a similar grant that is called the public safety grant, where fire stations staff up their firefighters, EMS, you name it, and they're nicely fully ran for a few years while the grant is active. But after the fact and that grant being gone, a lot of them are put into pretty terrible situations where they're letting go of individuals, the morale suffers, and just want to warn people that the salaries that you may be increasing or the staffing up that you're doing, that there is an exit plan, as it will not be temporary unless you have identified future revenue to make up for these grants, as we have seen this happen and very often with public safety. And this presents a similar situation where a lot of best hopes for future revenue are made and not necessarily come to fruition.
That's the thing. Lacey or Shanice, is there anything that you think of that I've missed that we should add?
Kind of piggybacking off of what Oscar just said, I don't know that we have mentioned the time and effort logs if you are going to use funding for any of your employees, any stipends, any increases in salary. You do have to have time and effort for all of those employee salaries that you pay.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I was just thinking, Frank, earlier when you were presenting, first of all, I did want to emphasize what Oscar said, that these are emergency funds. So, really making sure that we're tying everything back to those core three things that Frank was discussing initially, but also that these are one-time funds that come through. And then additionally, on the website, if you do hop onto the ESSER 2 and 3 website, anything that's a circle is basically clickable, and it will branch you out into some other spaces that kind of get those questions going when we're thinking about allowability and still using innovative expenses while staying within federal guidance and staying within that realm of allowability. So just a little plug for the website there.
Thanks. There is one, ESSER 3 has a few more restrictions, which we talked about with the return to learning plan, posting how the funds are being spent on your websites. The other is that there is a 20% minimum that must be allocated to learning loss and accelerated learning. You can, of course, provide more, but it has to be at least that 20%. And those funds, if you've not already done your ESSER 3, have to be budgeted upfront for the administrative, district admin part. You can use as little or as much funding in that piece, but at least 20%, and it must be fully budgeted when submitting your original application. Now, there are very few of those still out there for original applications for ESSER 3, but just in case you've not had a chance, just know that is a requirement.
I want to give one plug to one of our partners that has been on these webinars a few times, which is Amoresco. They have made a commitment to IDOE and to Bondry to continue to do free assessments of facilities for improvements. So they'll come to your facility, and usually when you typically have to pay a contract, we tell you how much it would be. They'll come and quickly tell you what the cost will be for improvements such as HVAC windows, energy efficiency, a lot of the things that you're seeing with ESSER. And that can help you frame future plans rather than spending the money on bringing in an architect or a contractor, and you don't necessarily have to use them. So just wanted to put that out there, that if there's anybody looking at improvements, to feel free to reach out to us and we can schedule that for you.
And there was one other question in the chat from Jim about using consultants for strategic planning. Yes, that is usually an allowable expense. Again, it comes down to the reasonableness of the price for that particular individual. Because there have been outside consultants that have been used to help out with providing counseling services, with managing the budget. So yes, those is most likely allowable. You're welcome, Jim. Anyone else? Sure. Now, is that for Jim or for me? Because I'm not sure of the.
It's in
Okay.
reference to what Oscar just mentioned
Okay,
about the
great.
free building assessments.
Okay, thanks. So I was looking at it, like, I'm not sure what that means.
Yeah, if you send me
I was trying to type fast, I'm sorry.
it's okay. If you email me, I'll put you in contact and we'll get you scheduled. Again, that is something that they're hoping that they'll get the business and has been successful for them rather than charging. So, you know, and if not, then you at least can use that to benchmark it against somebody else.
Jim, can you elaborate on your question about implementation of job training for students?
Yeah, I'm looking at expansion of kind of career center type opportunities, but embedded in businesses, and helping some, you know, could they use the ESSER dollars for support of that, building out of that process of doing programs for students inside of businesses where they get paid, pre-apprenticeships, basically.
It depends on how it is directly related to COVID-19 again. So it always goes to come back to that particular piece, and that's kind of been the area that's caught some people up. So we'd have to know a little bit more, but the description or your rationale would have to include how it's related to addressing, you know, preventing, mitigating, or addressing learning loss or accelerated learning due to COVID.
Yeah, mostly it has to do with working with students of poverty.
No, that would not necessarily be an ESSER thing. It might be possible with Title I with poverty, maybe, and Lacey might be able to answer more regarding Title IV. But just based on that rationale, that probably would not be something that we could do with ESSER funds.
Yeah, just to jump in on that, and I apologize, I was had to step away for a second. But Jim, I hear you asking about job training for students, which would definitely be a Title IV allowable activity. The whole thing about, I heard a mention of payment for students or to the students for the on-the-job training. That is something that would get into kind of a gray area that we would have to kind of sort through. Actually, guidance was just released on that. So that can be a future conversation, but that would be something that you could look towards your Title IV funds to support.
This is the last call for questions. Anything else that anybody would like to ask of one of our 3 IDOE representatives? All right, hearing none. On behalf of Bondry, I'd like to thank Frank, Lacey, and Shanice for their time today. Thank you for passing on this information. We look forward to the dashboard being live and implemented. I guess that is a question, if you want to give us a tentative date for individuals to be able to go on there and look to see how they're doing against other schools. But with that, I think we can end our webinar here, and I'll turn it over to Frank to say his final thoughts. But thank you all for participating today.
I just want to echo that. Thank you for being here, listening. Appreciate the questions because that helps us think more as well. If you have anything else, our contact information will be on the slides that Oscar will provide to you, and was also in the chat feature. So thank you, and wish you the best for the holidays and for the remainder of the year.
Thank you all. Our next webinar will be on facility utilization post-COVID. So we'll have an expert to come and talk about how they've been able to use a very, very small space and still meet COVID requirements. So please join us for that, and there'll be more information coming out. With that, thank you all, and we're signing off here. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.